What's going on, everybody? It's Q from Retro Q Gaming, your eternal physical media and original hardware collector, which is why this video is going to be very, very interesting for me. So we all know that digital distribution is definitely on the rise. There's no denying it. The numbers are out there, the sales, the numbers, everything, it is there. And there's no denying that digital distribution is increasing in both usage and profit every single year. And of course, there are many benefits to digital distribution. Sometimes it's cheaper, sometimes it's easier to use, sometimes it's quicker. But of course there's a bunch of negatives at the same time as well. It can be slower if you've got bad internet, there could be types of problems. Sometimes a product might not be on sale or might not be reduced in price versus a physical copy that, I don't know, maybe a year after release is 1/3 of the price. But in theory, it's pretty sound. With the exception of when games get pulled forever and your money is essentially gone. And having nothing to show for it if you're a physical collector. And if you're someone who trades games in, well, you pretty much can't do that either. But I'm not here to debate the merits, the positives or negatives of digital distribution. But what I am here to talk about might actually confuse and shock you. But before we go any further, I just want to take a second to introduce myself. I am a hardcore physical game collector. I love my physical media, both new and old, and I always prefer to play on original hardware, be it cartridge, CD, original console, whatever it is. And having said all that, there are some situations that I do find myself having digital distribution as an almost preferred method. PC games, for example, I don't know why I placed the PC aspect of it. It's not like I hold some less intrinsic value of the platform. But basically every game nowadays, for PC at least anyway, is usually a digital purchase. There's one or two exceptions, like if something is on special offer or I can get a physical copy cheaper than I can get a digital code. Or if there's a collector's edition of a game I really want, I'll obviously buy the physical version. But despite being a collector and someone who favours physical media, and obviously the PC being my favourite preferred platform, obviously because it's the best platform, you would think that for someone like me, it would make sense to buy physical PC games, right? But let me give you another example. I've made videos on this topic several times in the past, usually relating to my Xbox One because that's technically now all digital because there's only 2 games to play on it for me and I have digital copies of both of those games, Master Chief Collection and Halo 5. So the Xbox One for me is extremely easy to use. I can do everything without getting up to get a disc or whatever it is. Now of course that's a minor complaint, oh no I had to get up and walk to another room, boo-hoo. But there was a time when I didn't play much of my PlayStation 4 and I did play a decent amount of Xbox One and obviously PC. And at the time I was thinking, you know what, I would play my Switch more if I didn't have to be lazy and go to the other room just to pick up whatever game card I feel like playing. So I made a video talking about that before, but that's just to give you an idea. I do have inklings and possible bouts of considering a digital future. Now, there's an analysis firm out there at the moment who's analysing all sorts of sales data and trends and whatnot, and they actually reckon that by the year 2022, 100% or almost 100% of gaming media sold will be digital distribution. So basically everything will come from the PlayStation Network, Xbox Live, the Nintendo eShop, Steam, Origin, GOG, Uplay, whatever it is. And personally, while I don't think it's actually going to happen that soon, there is potentially something huge, and that something actually comprises of 2 smaller things, which we'll get to and look at in detail now in a minute. But that one major thing that could potentially happen between now and 2022, that could basically drive that to happen, and that is the next console generation. Now we all know console makers prefer digital distribution. There's more profit and less hassle for them. They get a larger cut of every game sold, as well as when they sell their own games, it's just 100% pure profit. When they sell a first-party game through a digital means on their own store, it's 100% profit. There's no cost to produce discs, there's no cost for shipping, there's no money lost for retailers or wholesalers or whatnot. So that's why they prefer to do that. Look at EA when they created Origin. Previously EA had sold all their games on Steam, and they had to give Valve a cut of everything sold. Then they felt like they were big boys and had some serious stuff and cojones when it came to Battlefield 3 and beyond, so they released Origin, where they get 100% of the profit of all of their own games sold. But now let's get back to what I want to talk about. And when you look at the one upcoming landmark change that could potentially happen to drive the sales preference to almost exclusively digital, if not completely digital, at least going forward, excluding, say, retro stuff and all that. There's one thing that could happen between now and 2022 that could pretty much almost 100% cement that, and that is the next console generation. And what do I mean by that? Well, let's take a look. The PlayStation 4 is currently doing gangbusters. With almost 90 million consoles sold, it's doing extremely well. Multi-platform games sell best on PlayStation 4 out of any of the 3 consoles, and it has the largest amount of third-party support as well as third-party exclusives too, and of course first-party games as well. And then we've got stuff like Xbox One, which has under half the amount of sales of the PlayStation 4, still a couple of dozen million consoles, but we're not going to talk about console war and sales versus each other really in this one. You'll see why I feel like mentioning that and sales numbers and whatnot. I'm not really including the Nintendo Switch in this because they can't even get physical media right, so it's pretty much irrelevant when it comes to this kind of argument. And again, you'll see why now in a second. So coming off the back of the PlayStation 4 and its basically utter dominance of this console generation, if Sony were to release the PlayStation 5 and not include a disc drive, maybe only include something like a 2 or 4 terabyte hard drive, do you really think that all those other manufacturers would stop making games for the PlayStation 5? The console that would likely go on to win the generation again? And imagine Microsoft announced a new Xbox with the exact same thing. Imagine they launched it with a 2 or 4 terabyte hard drive and no disc drive. Do you really think all those main third-party publishers are just going to stop making games for these 2 platforms where they will potentially sell millions of software units on those 2 consoles specifically? It's not like they're all going to flock to Nintendo Switch. That's absolutely 125% out of the question. But if Sony and Microsoft were to do that, it's done. There's no fighting against it. There's nothing you can do. A lot of people won't be happy about it, myself included, but I'm pretty sure that eventually, and probably fairly soon after they launch, most people would just forget about it and just go with the convenience. Sure, you'd have people like me or die-hard physical media guys, but I can almost guarantee you, if the Xbox 2 and the PlayStation 5 launched on the same day with no physical media drive, and as long as it had a proper network infrastructure, PlayStation Network is basically terrible still, and an adequate amount of storage, I guarantee you that 1 year after launch, you would very, very rarely see people complaining about the lack of physical media. It would probably be there at the start, it would possibly be pretty prevalent at the start, but it would go down gradually over time. And again, I say all this as a die-hard physical media guy. So do I think gaming will go 100% digital by the year 2022? I don't think it actually will, but I could see something like that, the Xbox 2 and the PlayStation 4 releasing with potentially no disc drives and only digital distribution services. I'm not talking cloud services like PlayStation Now or the shit that Capcom is putting on the Switch. I'm talking about actually digitally downloading the games to your console onto the hard drive in there and playing them locally from there. If they did that, it's done. There's no way around it. All these companies, all these developers, whoever it is, all these publishers that make millions, hundreds of millions, if not billions on all these games are not suddenly going to stop. They're not suddenly going to go and make games for 10-year-old hardware like the Nintendo Switch. I realize it's not actually 10-year-old hardware, but the visuals they can push out of it pretty much are. Versus the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Now of course, like I mentioned at the start of this video, PC I've pretty much left out of here because it's basically all digital as it is. But I think it's very curious to see that this one move by the 2 major players in the console space would essentially kill physical media straight out. Again, I don't count Nintendo in all of this because they can't even get their physical media right, let alone their digital services or their hardware. So let me know in the comment section below, what do you think when it comes to this? When it comes to digital distribution, do you think we'll see 100% digital only by the year 2022? Do you think the next consoles like the PS5 and the Xbox 2 will launch with only digital media? And like I predicted in this video, do you think that if they did launch like that, it would basically kill 100% of the physical media market? Or the majority of it, because we'll give Nintendo their little 2% share when it comes to physical game media. But we're really looking at the 2 major players in the console space here. We're really looking at the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One. Their hardware and software sales say they're the only relevant ones really, not to mention their third-party support. And of course, would this affect you? Would you care at first? Would you eventually grow to love it? Would you not care? Or do you prefer digital distribution as it is? Like I said at the start, it's got many pros, it's got many merits, has a few cons as well. So I'm very curious to hear what your stance is on digital distribution, both as it stands now, as well as going forward. So let me know in the comment section below, all that good stuff. Remember to hit the appropriate button to let me know how I did on the video. While you're at it, why not even hit that nice subscribe button and even turn on the little notification bell so you can get all the little notifications whenever there's a new video, a new live stream, or an update, or whatever it is. Granted, it's 2018, so getting an actual notification from YouTube is still pretty questionable, even when you've turned that stuff on. But hey, at least you can say you've tried, right? As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the rest of the videos in my channel.